I realized that I wasn't a Division One basketball player. I, they're just the game was too big. The game, the players were too big. The market for me as a unathletic, undersized post it dried up. And they asked me to. They said I could keep hanging around though. They let me keep coming to practice. They let me jump in a drill every once in a while, and eventually asked me if I wanted to be a student manager. And I said yes, but in the back of my mind, I thought, well, if I stay around and they keep letting me in, eventually they'll let me be on the team. And that I had this delusion still that eventually I would get there. And that never happened, never materialized. I was
What
a
year did you
manager
become
for
manager?
my sophomore year.
Oh,
My
okay.
sophomore year.
Good year. Okay.
So my freshman year, I was around. I didn't, just kind of popping in every once in a while. My sophomore year, I became a manager full time and did it for my last 3 years. And about halfway through my sophomore year, I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the idea that I could affect the team. Like they, college basketball. I know it doesn't seem that long ago to me, but it was like 20 years ago now, so it's longer ago than I think it was. But we had three assistants, and that was it. There was no director of operations. There was no video coordinator. It was a head coach and three assistants, and that was it. And we had two or three managers, and I realized that if I kept showing up, they would let me keep doing things. And so they let me work guys out. They let me learn to do video. I'm kind of a nerd, so they let me, do some technology stuff. And every, month they just kept putting more and more on my plate. And I started to like this way more than I cared about my school that I was doing. And so sometime in my junior year, one of the coaches said, hey, do you want to coach? And I didn't really know. I had no idea if I wanted to coach or not. I just really enjoyed doing what I was doing. And I'm glad I continued down that road. I was fortunate enough after I finished, I didn't know what to do to get a job. In college basketball, I had no idea what to do. I sent a handwritten note and my resume to all 350 Division One programs in the country at that time. I didn't.
Can we stop there? I mean, okay, this just speaks to my heart so much, right? Like that, yeah. And this is back in the day. You didn't just text somebody. You like literally had to figure out, and you probably just didn't. Maybe you popped onto their website. Was it easy to get
Yeah,
the?
yeah. I figured that out. They had the staff directory, so I could
Okay.
find the address, but the public there was maybe there were public emails. I don't know. I just thought I should send something handwritten, so that's what
Did
I
you
did.
know anybody at any of those places?
I knew no one. I knew like my dad didn't coach my family. I have no one, and now the coaches at Loyola where I was at, they wanted to help me. I had been in the office. I had worked for them for 3 years. They wanted to help me, but they'd never done it either. They had never helped somebody go right into coaching from being a manager, and so they tried to connect me with people that they could. And like I said, I sent out every single program, and I still have a stack of letters that I got back, and it was like 16 letters that I got back from the 360 places. They're
Wow.
in my desk at my office. They sit in my desk just as a kind of a reminder of where you came from and what you did to and how much you really wanted to do this and love it on some of those hard days. It's a good reminder.
Tell me what the letter said. Give us.
Uh, they all said thanks, but no thanks. Every
Okay.
single one, said appreciate your interest. We don't have anything for you.
Was it a form
I got
letter or was it like
uh, some of them were form letters, some of them were handwritten from a secretary, some of them were a handwritten note from a coach. It's a combination of things. It also reminds me to get back to people. Like when I get those now, it's a reminder to me to make sure you take the time to write that person back or send that email back or whatever it is, because that matters to people. Um, I got two maybes basically. One of them, one of our assistant coaches, his dad was a head coach in Division One, and so I got a courtesy maybe from him. and the other one was at VCU in Richmond, Virginia. And they basically said, if you can get into our grad school, we'd consider you for a GA spot. And to me, that was like, you have a job. Like, okay, whatever I got to do, I will do it. I'd heard no so many times. Whatever I have to do, I will do. And fortunately, I was a good student. I knew I wouldn't have any trouble getting into grad school. I was a really good standardized test taker, always have been. So I knew I'd get into grad school. And I got in, and they gave me an interview. I came down to Virginia and interviewed with Shaka Smart at VCU, where I really interviewed with Kyle Getter, who literally just got the Cal Baptist job a couple days ago. He was the director of ops at VCU. And
What
I
year
interviewed
is
with
this?
him. This is 2010. So this is Shaka had just finished his first year at VCU, 2010. I come down, I interview. On my drive back from Richmond to Baltimore, they call and they offer me a GA spot. I should have called and made sure it was okay with my newlywed wife at the time that I was going to do it, but I didn't. I accepted it on the spot, and within a couple weeks, I was down in Richmond getting
Honey?
started. Yeah, I think when I got home, I pretended like I hadn't accepted it yet, but we were all in. And coaching is a difficult lifestyle for family. It's difficult on my wife. She's been through a lot. But we're fortunate that it's what we know. It's all we know. Like, I got married super young. I was still in college. And it's what we know. It's all we know, and we love it, and we love the lifestyle, and we love the people that we get to serve, and the players and the coaching staff that we get to work with. And it's been great. But, yeah, we moved right away to Richmond, Virginia. We lived in one of the worst apartments I've ever been in my life, making no money. And that was the year that VCU went to the Final Four in 2011.
I was going to say, what year did they make the run?
Yeah, so that was my first year in coaching. It was like, oh, this is easy. Like, this is like the best thing ever. I show up, we go to the Final Four. My daughter was born shortly after the Final Four, so it was great. It was an unbelievable experience. I was fortunate, that year was good for everybody, right? You go to the Final Four from VCU, a lot of people get jobs. Multiple of our assistants got head coaching jobs. But most importantly for me, our video coordinator got a better video coordinator job. And I told you I was a little bit of a nerd. They offered me the video spot. So I could go from being a GA to being the video coordinator. And got to stay 2 more years full-time working for Shaka Smart at VCU. So I was there for 3 years total. And from there went to Mount St. Mary's as an assistant. So one of the guys who was with us at VCU got the Mount St. Mary's job, asked me to come with him to be an assistant. And, ran from there. Was there for 3 years as an assistant coach. It's funny, VCU is one of the premier mid-major jobs in the country. And it spoiled me big time for the rest of for a long time. But I went to the Mount from there, and I was like, oh, this is nice. Like, we're out here in the middle of nowhere, but we get 3,000 fans to our games. Like, that's pretty cool. Like, but it's not VCU, right? Like, that's all I knew. And so I was there for 3 years and had a great experience. Met a ton of people. We were good. We went to the NCAA tournament, and got an opportunity to go to Radford in Southwest Virginia with Mike Jones.
Yeah.
Yep. And Mike was so the way it worked at VCU is that we each had, every assistant coach had a GA that was kind of like their gopher. And I was Mike's GA. That year we went to the Final Four. Mm-hmm. And so he got the Radford job that summer, but I had already accepted the video position at VCU, and he said, I can't take you because that wouldn't be right. Like, you already accepted this job. You can't then leave Coach Smart hanging because you choose to take a job with me. And so it took another 5 years, but he finally called me and was able to offer me a job. And offered me a job as an assistant, and I ended up working for Mike for 8 years, 5 at Radford, and then we had a ton of success, went to the NCAA tournament, won our league 3 times, and then we went to UNC Greensboro together. And I was there for 3 years, was an assistant for him.
Can I pause there because to put on my parenting hat? So you were recruiting Parker, and I was hearing your name, and you and I jumped on a couple calls, And Parker's like, oh, I really like him, and he's so kind, and I've never been to North Carolina, but maybe I should check it out. And I was like, okay. And then Coach Jones called me, and Parker was like typical 18-year-old boy with I don't know, like like couldn't figure out what he wanted or like where he wanted to go, and so I was trying to help him navigate that. And Mike Jones was the same way. And remember, I said, you're probably calling because you need you need me to make a decision. You need us to make a decision. And he said, actually, no. He said, I just, he doesn't need to make a decision. Like, both of the way that you both handled it was so like kind and so understanding. I mean, I guess you both had been 18-year-old men and you understood what he was probably going through. But those are the things, and I say this to parents who may be going through the recruiting process, is listening to those. Like, those still stick with me now 5 years later, right? Because that tells me everything I need to know about who you are as a person. And when we're trying to help our kids navigate, okay, will they be a fit there? And regardless of, we get so enamored with the record and we won conference and the fun locker room and the great product. But at the end of the day, right, when the lights go out, like, as a parent, you want them to know they're going to be at a place where they care about your kid. And again, not to belabor the point, but like that's to me when I was like, oh, we need to go visit because of how you both handled the process, which speaks volumes about who you are as people.
I appreciate it. I think that's why we work together so long and so well. It's a business where you move a lot, right? You don't stay with the same people for very long unless there's, that sort of alignment, that sort of connection. And, Coach Jones, is a mentor to me. Someone's taught me a lot. But what he really helped me understand, and I knew it. I knew that the joy I was getting from coaching was helping people, right? Was helping these young men at a time when they needed it, when I needed it, and he helped me understand that if you do that and if that's really why you're doing it and you make every day about that, you'll win enough, right? And if you don't win enough, you'll be able to put your head on the pillow when you get fired, and it'll be okay. You'll be able to do that. And unfortunately, Coach Jones did just had that that unfortunate situation, and we've talked almost every day over the course of the last couple of weeks since he got let go at Greensboro, and then he'll say it. It stinks, but he did right by those players every day and taught me a lot about how to do that. And because at the end of the day, that's what's going to make your experience, like you said, a fancy locker room or a charter flight. Those things are great, but they're not going to they're not going to make your experience 10, 15, 20 years down the road. You're going to remember the people that you were with and the environment that you were in, and did it help you grow and become the type of man, in my case, that you want to be. And I think we did that for the players that we served and coached, and I'm trying to do that now. I got lucky enough to become a head coach from UNCG, and when you're an assistant at that level, in the a mid-major assistant, there's not a lot of, you don't feel like there's a lot of head coaching jobs you can get. You put the time in. I've been an assistant for 15 years, and I felt like I was ready to be a head coach. But there's this stigma that you've got to work at a high major, that you got to come and be a high major assistant if you want to be a head coach. And I was wrestling with this, and Coach Jones kept telling me, "Hey, you're really good. Like, you're going to get a job. Like, you don't have to leave. And if you want to leave, great. But I'll help you. I'll support you. But you don't feel like you have to if it's not a job you don't want to go to." And I was fortunate in the same cycle. The two jobs that I thought maybe I could get both came open. One was Loyola, my alma mater, and the other was Mount St. Mary's, where I'd worked, and still had a bunch of connections in the department. And interviewed for both of them, and ended up obviously getting the Mount St. Mary's job. And it's been an unbelievable 2 years. We've had success, we've had failure, we've had everything that comes with it. I've learned so much, and we've had great kids, great young men to be around. And that's been the best part, is seeing these guys grow and develop, and and trying to learn a ton every day. I'm trying to learn a ton every day, and trying to have a group of people around me that want to grow and develop, because we've become a time in college athletics that is changing so rapidly that I think some people are losing the plot, as the young people would say, with what it is, what you're here for. And whether I have you for 9 months or I get you for 4 years, like, we're going to get better, we're going to grow, and I'm trying to find the people that are bought into that.
So let's talk about that, because I know a lot of people, and it is such a rapidly changing landscape. It is hard to wrap your arms around. So maybe just even could you give us a little history, like, okay, since post-COVID, then we go from now you don't have to, because again, back in my day, you had to sit out a year if you wanted to transfer. And then we get to COVID and all of a sudden the wheels come off of that. They open the floodgates and say, okay, great. You now have unlimited transfers. First it was just 1 year, right? And then they went to now you can go unlimited. And then, NIL, name, image, and likeness came on board. So talk about like the last 5 years and what you've seen, the evolution of that.
Yeah, it's been a confluence of 2 or 3 different streams that came together that if each one happened independently, I think we would have been okay. But they all happened together at this, within a pretty rapid succession, and has caused, this time that we're in right now. Like you said, first, and it was a problem, right? Because in basketball and football, you had to sit out when you transferred, and in all the other sports, you could transfer without sitting out. And so, right, people thought that wasn't equitable. So they made it that you could transfer without sitting out. And so there was no punishment, no hindrance to transferring, as long as you kept your academics relatively in line. So that happened. Then the advent of the transfer portal, which made it cool to transfer, right? It made it almost like a sexy thing to put your name in the portal. It was like this place where all your hopes and dreams would come true. I'm going into the portal. Before that, you had to go to your compliance and you had to get permission to be contacted. And the school had the ability to say, these certain schools cannot contact you. You can't get contacted in your conference. You can't get contacted by schools that are in our metro area because we don't want you to go to a competitor of ours. There were all these things that the school could do. And, some of them were not fair to the student athlete for sure. And so they just came up with the transfer portal. And so you have these 2 things, and then you have obviously the NIL legislation, and then the House settlement with revenue sharing, and the floodgates just got completely blown open with the ability to transfer. And obviously in men's basketball, I see it the most, but it's happening in every sport at every level, that there is now this, frequency and accessibility and ease of transfer. And, it's not all bad. It's not all good either. It is not, where all your hopes and dreams come true by going into the transfer portal. But there are some things that, just have changed what goes into recruiting, what goes into what makes a job or a school or a place a good or bad fit, has changed. And, the ability to win, and, as much as, like I said, I want to win. I'm competitive. I'm going to get hired and fired based on my ability to win. Although it's not the number one reason I do my job, the ability to be competitive has changed. What makes a school competitive relative to its peers, those things have changed over the last 5 years. And so, there's a recalibration going on all the time for us as coaches, and I know for parents as well, as what would be a good fit, and how to make it work for their children.
Maybe you know better than I, but I heard that out of, is it 5,400 men's basketball athletes in D1, roughly 2,900 are in the portal or something similar to that? Oh, 2/3?
Yeah, I haven't looked today, but yeah, there was just under 3,000 the last time I looked. Now there's other issues going on. There's a lot of players who have gone into the portal who don't have any more eligibility because there's this potential of the 5th year 5 for 5 that is being talked about. So yeah, it's chaotic, and it happens fast, and it's a lot of work for us and our staff to go through and see who we need and who fits what we're looking for. And that's been the I don't know, fun probably isn't the right word, but the part that I'm enjoying is it hasn't changed, right? It's finding the right people that I want to coach. And now there's qualifying those prospects. There's another, there's just more components to it, right? It's not just, is he an academic fit for our institution, and is he a basketball fit for me, and is he a cultural fit? There's money and eligibility and those sort of things that go into it too.
So I was having a call with a friend of mine who's a Division I volleyball coach, and she said, now I'm getting calls from agents who won't let me talk to the athlete until I tell them what the number is. They tell me what the number is, that I need to approve the number, and then they'll let the athlete know. And she's like, it's kind of like saying, do you want to buy the house or not? Well, I don't know. Can I look at the house first? Like, can I talk, can I go in and see if it's going to work for me or not? And he said, no, like you need to just make a decision, to which she texted both of them back, said, thanks for the opportunity. Wish you good luck. I heard you got another one. And the athlete called her directly and said, I never approved that, right? So you're hearing, does everybody have an agent? Is that now the world we live in?
I wouldn't say everybody, but there's more people than not that do. And part of it is, it's cultural norm amongst basketball players to have an agent now. It's unnecessary for the majority of players to have an agent. If they have a high school coach or an AAU coach or parents who they can trust, then it's really not always necessary. It's necessary for people who are getting real name, image, and likeness deals, but not to negotiate rev share. I mean, I had a Zoom yesterday where we offered a kid a package, financial package that is a lot of money relative to what at least I think it is.
Full ride scholarship,
full ride scholarship plus a significant amount of money. Yeah. And that at the end of the call, they said, we love everything. He doesn't want to come on a visit. He just wants to decide based on the Zooms. And I said, I'm not comfortable with that. I'm not comfortable with, this guy who I expect to be my starting point guard, right? To come to my school without ever having stepped foot on it, for me to take him without ever having had a meal together, sat in the same room. Maybe if I had a previous relationship with the kid, or maybe if we knew a lot. But the kid's from LA. I'd never seen him play before. I watched him on film this year. I like him. He's a good player. But there's a lot of good players out there. There really are. And I think the best coaches are able to wade through some of that stuff and still end up with a locker room that works. And
he wouldn't want to come on a visit,
because all that matters to that player is the money right, and is the opportunity right, and they feel as though they can do that anywhere, right? If I can do it at what X school in the Mountain West, then I can do it at the Mount. And our school is, it's a great place, but it's in the middle of nowhere, right? I want you to know what you're getting into, and I want to have that connection. I believe in relationships. I believe in putting together a group that comes together and can do that. And if, as much as I love a Zoom, it's not the same as sitting across from somebody and getting a feel for who that person is, and are you really aligned on the things that matter. And especially for my point guard, right? That guy's gonna have the ball in his hands the whole game. I gotta have a trust level there that, again, we don't need to spend a week on vacation together, but come spend 18 hours with me, and let's have a couple meals together, and let's talk, and come see where you're gonna live, and let's make sure that this is a good fit. And so, I don't like drawing lines in the sand, but I think I did on that one, and said, hey, I'm not gonna take you if you're not gonna be willing to do that. And maybe I'm in the minority, I'm not sure, but yeah, it's an interesting time when it comes to recruiting, for sure.
What percentage, not scientifically, but just roughly, are you talking to kids that are going on their second, third, fourth school?
Yeah, the one-time transfer is probably, 15 to 20%. Most of them are on, second and third transfer. Yeah.
Trying to better their financial situation, it wasn't a great fit. What, you get all the reasons, I'm guessing. But
all the reasons. We end up with a lot of, was at a place around our level, had a good year, went too high, Now, hey, I need to go to a place where I can play, and that I'm good with that, right? Like, we're not going to be able to pay you as much as they paid you in the Power Four, but this is a better situation for you for your this year and probably for you long term, right? We had a kid who was on our team this last year. He had played at Santa Clara for 2 years. He couldn't, barely played, right? He's from out by us. We had known him in high school. We brought him in, visited him. He wanted to be back close to his mom and his sister, and so we got him. And he was a great player for us. And, unfortunately, and fortunately, he was only there for a year, right? And opened himself up to opportunities that we could in no way match. And now he can go play in just sign at Northwestern, right? And he's going to be able to get a degree from Northwestern and be able to play in the Big Ten and be able to make, life-changing money. And, we used to not celebrate that, and I think we have to celebrate that in a sense. We used to celebrate when guys would go to the pros. We'd celebrate if they left college early to go be in the NBA. But we're not, now I think we have to celebrate when guys get what they want, and they want to, play at the highest level. They want to, again, make life-changing money for their family. Like, if we can help them do that, and that's what their goal is, and while they're with us, they bought into being a part of our team and trying to help us win and being about our culture and building relationships with his teammates. If they do those things and it works out, then, more power to them. The thing that I have learned is that we have to be so much more intentional as coaches with the things that we're trying to teach these young people. Yes, how to pivot and score around the basket is one of those things, but it pales in comparison to what we're really trying to teach them. And we used to have 4 years or 3 years to do that, and a lot of that stuff would come naturally over time, those conversations about growing up and being a man and resilience and the things that I want our players to learn. And now I have to be intentional about them, because I wouldn't be happy to go through the year and not have those conversations. If this kid is only in my program for 1 year and he doesn't learn, or at least is not exposed to those things, then I feel like I did him a disservice. So it's way more intentional on that sense.
I'm rereading, which I just love it, Legacy, for I don't know, the 5th time, but I'm in the middle of it, and he's talking about the All Blacks culture that we need to be. We're looking for character first, essentially. And I think that's what you're saying, which is if I recruit the right way to get, and again, it's not 100%, but, and again, this is also part of their journey is, raising your hand and going, I made a stupid mistake and I'm learning. And as coaches, I would assume that's what attracted you to the role, which is I get to help people figure out who they are. And I don't know if you're there yet, you're not quite as old, but like my college coach at William & Mary was in my wedding because she made such an impact on my life. And that's the opportunity that you have, which maybe now is, you don't get them necessarily for 4 years, but it starts with character.
100%. That's why I think that there's still a lot of us, and that's why we do it. If you get into coaching because you want to make money and you want to win games, like there are people like that, but I feel as though those people are struggling more and more to make it in the world that we're in right now. And so most of us get into coaching because we want to have that impact, and somebody did that for us, and we want to do it for the next generation of player. And so and like I said, it's just it is. I don't want to say it's in a microwave, but it is more intentional. It has to be, because those relationships take time to form, and if you don't spend the time and you're not intentional about it, and you think, I'll get to that conversation next week, and you keep putting that off, next thing you know, 9 months go by and the player's in the transfer portal, and you never got to have those conversations that could make that big impact in that person's life.
So this may be confrontational or whatever, controversial, I should say. But my thought is, I totally agree with the transfer portal. Like, yes, and I did that. I mean, even back in the day, and if it's not a good fit, you should find the good fit, and that's great. And okay, you want to make more money, but this this like you can just keep going 4 or 5 years. Like, then let's like, are we to the place where we're going to make contracts? Like, we also should. We're not teaching them any life lessons by allowing them to. And what I think is in 10 years, you're going to have, I don't know, a kid that got lucky enough to, let's say, made $1 million over 4 years or whatever the number is, but doesn't have a degree, never ended up anywhere longer than a year, and never, learned any of the hardship lessons, and probably didn't even learn how to invest his money. So what does he have, right? Like, how do we, are there talks, do you know about them trying to actually put in parameters for contracts or some kind of stipulation?
Yeah, I mean there are talks.
Don't think it'll happen.
From from my vantage point, I would say that
Or does that help
unless
you?
the players collective bargaining is the only way that you're going to have rules
Okay.
that are enforceable. But in order to have collective bargaining, you have to have employees. And if you have employees, 95% of the universities wouldn't be able to afford them. So, there's some issues there. I totally agree that, there are lessons that the student athletes, the young people need to learn about failure and how to respond from failure. And, that if you run from your failures over and over and over again, you're never going to learn anything. You're going to find somebody else that enables you to continue to have bad habits and continue to work and fail. And so, there are, the player, the student athlete who transfers 4 times. I think the epidemic that we're going to see is an epidemic of kids who don't get a degree. You're going to have an epidemic of athletes that go to 4 schools in 4 years and they don't have enough credits because they don't all transfer, and now they don't get a degree. And that is, part of the disservice that's happening because of this is that you're missing out on the point. Yes, in men's basketball there are some athletes that are earning life-changing money. That's the extreme minority. The majority of them who are earning some money are earning just that, some money. Mm-hmm. And they need to make sure that that money's not going to last much longer after they finish college. And so getting a degree so that when that ball stops bouncing, that has to still be a something we're progressing toward. And the ability to transfer this many times without sitting out. When you would sit out, you'd be able to make up the classes, right? If you had to sit out, you could make up the credits that maybe you lost out on in a transfer. Now that you don't have to sit out, there's these kids that go 4 schools in 4 years and they run out of eligibility and they're nowhere close to a degree. And that's disheartening, that's disappointing. And so trying to, again, every coach is different and what every coach cares about is different. But for me, I want to try to bring in guys that we can help progress toward still getting a degree, because again, that is the plot. That's what we're trying to do here in all that we do is make sure that these guys, yes, they can play basketball and yes, hopefully they can earn some money, but they also can get a college degree that's going to last them far longer than the money that they earn.
I just watched the documentary on Pat Summitt, and she said the proudest thing that she's ever done is that she had 100% graduation rate. She said, mm-hmm. I'll take that for all the banners. Like, she said that was, and again, I know women is different, but that is something that speaks to the integrity of what she was about. And, you had to stay eligible and you had to graduate in order to do, because the little stuff is the big stuff, right? Like when you're taking care of things in the classroom, you're also taking things in the locker room and on the court and with your friends. Like all of those things kind of go hand in hand as you start to grow. I'm going to I was speaking to Robert Eichart yesterday at BTI here in Los Angeles, and I'm going to speak to their parents of, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids. And he said, it's really hard for a high schooler to get recruited right now with all this going on. What advice would you have to parents who have kids that they aren't overly talented, but they have a passion and they want to play, but they're not NIL level kids, but they are a kid that could have gotten recruited 7-8 years ago?
Yeah, it's I think that there are still opportunities for those players, and everyone wants to be a Division One player. I told you my story. I wanted to be a Division One player too, but in today's world, I think there is more than ever. You should go where you can play, and that means that if that means you can, you wanted to go to Stanford, but you end up at a high academic Division III, but you can play, go. And if you can play somewhere and you're better than that and you can prove it, then the opportunities will open for you. That's the world we're in right now. It's as opposed to going and sitting there or trying to walk on or those sort of things. Like, those opportunities just don't exist like they used to. And so now the opportunity is, hey, who's actually recruiting me? Am I getting some Division III calls? Okay, then that's where I am right now. As much as you might not want to believe it, or part of the issue, and I know we're speaking to parents here, is that parents invest a lot of money in their students, their children, and most people, when they invest that money, they want a return on that investment in the form of a scholarship or in the form of NIL money or whatever that is. And so it's hard to say, well, my son played, travel basketball since he was 10 years old, and I spent thousands of dollars every summer to go all around the country, and now I got to also pay for his college because he's going to go Division III. And so I want to hold out and get him to Division I where he can get a full scholarship, or Division II where at least he can get almost a full scholarship, or whatever it is. And I would say, as I understand, I feel that as a parent of a 10-year-old who's being dragged to play travel sports, and I'm trying to tell my wife we don't need to do that yet, and it'll be okay. I recruit kids all the time. I never went to a 10-year-old basketball game, but I understand. But at the same point, the world that we're in right now is, if you don't play, there's not going to be opportunity. And so, go where you can play and go where you're being recruited to. And again, if you think you're better than that, then go prove it. And you'll give yourself opportunity to go to the upper level. And then if you can prove it there, you'll go up another one. It's the way of the world right now with college athletics.
So I want to take a page out of your book. When you were graduating and you sent out 350 letters, handwritten letters, what advice would you have to kids who are wanting to be noticed? Like, what is the best way for them to stand out so that you might open their email or their Twitter message or whatever?
Yeah, I would say that having someone who can vouch for you is the best thing that you can do. As much as I would love to say that every email I get, I watch the video that's in there, I can't. I'm sorry. But if an AAU coach calls me that I have respect for, that I've worked with before, or a friend of mine calls me and says, hey, there's this kid in Southern California that can really play. Nobody's recruiting him. I don't know why. Take a look. I'm going to take a look. And having a coach who is honest with the kid, because the coach doesn't want to call me if the coach really knows that kid's not a Division I player. And so, again, having a real relationship with your AAU coach or your high school coach, so that you can say, and when he says to you, hey, I'll call these Division IIs, but I'm not going to call Division I right now because my reputation's on the line, right? And so when those guys call, we're going to investigate. And that's the best thing that young people can do, is to have those people that have play for a program where the coach has some contacts, whatever level it might be, and then leverage those because the mass mailings and those things, like at the Division I level, they're going by the wayside.
Do you have any parents reach out to you?
I have some, very few. Thankfully, now I'm a head coach, my email's not on the website anymore. But we'll have some. We live, we're an hour from D.C. and an hour from Baltimore, and so there's a lot of players in our backyard, and so we'll have people come through the office and stop in, probably twice a month. There'll be a prospective prospect that'll stop in with their parents and just want to let us know that they're accepted into school and they want a chance or something like that. And I respect it. We'll spend some time and talk to them. Again, part of these new rules is we also can't take an unlimited number of players on our team anymore. One of the things that with the house settlement and with revenue sharing is there are also roster caps that are new. And so we used to be able to carry, if we wanted to carry 25 people, we could. Now we're limited to 15. And so that changes, the walk-on situation. That changes, these people that, aren't recruited, that want to be a part of your team, or, are coming in late as seniors, and so, being able to get in front of people as juniors, 16 under, 17 under AAU is important. But also, again, playing it for people that have those contacts that can help you is very important too.
I heard of a school that's taking 5 spots off and giving that as NIL. I guess I would assume using that for walk-ons then. Is that how that would work?
Yeah, basically. So again, with the way our in men's basketball, we can have 15 spots. We could give 15 scholarships, but every school is different, right? And how they want to allocate those funds. And at a state university, those funds might go dollar for dollar. At a small private school, it's not. If I say I'm gonna have less scholarships, it's not like I get $60,000 more to give an NIL. It's not a dollar for dollar trade. So it's different at every school.
So will you take walk-ons, or you don't have roster spots now?
Well, so we have we kept the 13 scholarships. So we had men's basketball had 13 scholarships before. So we've kept 13 scholarships, and we keep 2 walk-ons. I think, first of all, I think it's hard to keep 15 guys on scholarship happy. At least your 2 walk-ons, they have a general idea that they're probably not going to be playing.
Yeah.
And so you got a couple guys there that are happy to be practice players and happy to be on the scout team. And so I don't mind that. I think it's a little bit easier to have your locker room the way you want it, with a couple less guys that expect to play.
In your 20 years of coaching, have you ever been part of one of those kids that goes from walk-on to rostered to a scholarship athlete?
Yeah, for sure. I had one in my 2 years already. So when I got here, my first year, there was a player on our team who was a walk-on, whose dad was a women's assistant. And so that's how they found him. And he was a walk-on my first year. We had so many injuries down the stretch. He played 12 minutes in our conference semifinal win and scored 7 points. And so I had no choice but to give him a scholarship for his next year. But no expectation. Stayed on the scout team his whole time. Even though he was on scholarship the following year, he was still on the scout team. And both years that I was there, I loved the kid, but I said that, he's not going to play. Like, he's not quite good enough. He's not quite fast enough. He's not quite athletic enough, but he can really shoot. If you know anybody like that. And so eventually he just, found his way onto the court, whether it was injuries, whether it was, guys go through a little bit of slump and you want to try to throw somebody else out there to make a shot. Both years he found his way onto the court, and he graduated in 3 years. He's got 1 class to take this summer, and he went into the portal because he wants to go Division II and play, 30 minutes a game next year. He got his degree from us, and I can't knock that either, right? I can't give him that. I can't promise him 30 minutes a game. So he's going to go to a place where he can do that, and I celebrated him. I called every one of my friends in Division II and said, hey, you should look at this kid. I love him. I wish I could keep him, but I can't give him that role. And he actually just signed with one of my best friends, so I'm pretty excited about it.
So those are the stories I love, right? Because that to me is the whole point, and that was the point of the book, which is those are the life lessons. And just because you weren't recruited out of high school, and we know all those kinds of stories, and then they do a post grad, and then they go to a D3, and then but how bad do you want it, and why are you playing? And if you're playing for the right reason, which is I want to get better and I want to be a good teammate, then there is opportunity. And I love your answer, because I agree with it. Like, if you're really truly passionate, there probably is a place for you, but you have to decide and be realistic about what that level is. And if you're like, no, and this is where the parents are sometimes delusional, and we had a trainer and he said my kid could play D1, and he needs to eat too. So, right, like, he's going to say whatever he thinks you need to hear. And then to defend the parents, they're usually parents that never played themselves, so they don't understand how the whole thing works. But yeah, I think when we can support our child with their dream and then be realistic about, great. Or maybe you want to go to Michigan and play on their club team, which their club team's probably better than a few programs, to begin with, right? Like, those are all the players that just decided to go to Michigan instead, that, maybe not as much anymore, but, that's kind of the way I look at it as well.
Yeah, no doubt. And obviously my view is probably shaped by what I went through, right? I was that kid, right?
Yeah.
I was delusional about who I was. And the thing that I've learned is that the college coaches are pretty good at their job. And if you're getting recruited by all Division III schools, you're probably right now a Division III player. They probably didn't all get it wrong, or all the Division IIs in your state didn't miss you. They saw you, they didn't think you were good enough, and it's okay. Like I said, it's okay. And go someplace where you can play. And no one. You might really want to be a Division I player. The most people who leave our program are players who sat on the bench and didn't play. For every kid that we have that left and went high major, we have two that went too high to come to us, and now they want to transfer to a place where they can play. Nobody's happy sitting on the bench. Nobody's happy even if it's Division I, and even if they're getting a little bit of money. But usually those kids eventually say, you know what, this is great and all, but I want to play. I want to find a place where I can play.
It's a lot of work for not to have no glory, to only wear the uniform, right? Sit on the bench. How many spots are you filling now?
We have 6 spots to finish this spring. We had 9 last year, so I feel a little bit better about that. We lost some really key contributors. We lost 4 seniors that didn't have eligibility left. So we got some work to do, but we're working hard.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you get to go to the March Madness and everybody sees how talented you are, right?
Something like that.
Oh, this is so fun. Thank you so much for making time. I love hearing inside baseball, inside basketball, and how things are working. And for parents who are listening, this is their journey. And I truly believe that it's fun to allow them to experience it. And of course, we want to be along for the ride. And as a parent too, right? It's exciting, and of course you want to try to open doors for them, but at a certain point, if you're willing to write the 350 letters, you're probably going to figure out where it is you're meant to be.
No doubt. Yeah, I had my first heart beating through my chest parent moment watching my kid play baseball the other day, and I was like, I get it a little bit more now. I understand a little bit more when these parents come and knock on my door. And ask if they can get their kid on the team. It was really cool. But yeah, no, it's a fun experience on both sides, and I'm excited as now with my kids get older to hopefully have a little bit more empathy for those parents who are really trying to help their sons and their daughters, end up in a position, that is best for them. And that's what we all want as parents, is we all want to be in what's best for them. And, hopefully, more and more can realize, again, my advice would be to go where you can play, go where you're loved, go where you're wanted, and the rest will work out from there level-wise.
The best recruiting advice I heard through both boys getting recruited was, as we left UNC Greensboro, you said to Parker, the second best answer I can hear is no. And I thought that was so honest and so nice, because it's true, right? That's what I see as these parents, and I think we even talked about it, just ghosting you, or the kid not responding, or we decided to go a different direction, or the whole point of them going through the process is to learn about who they are. And part of growing is having tough conversations. And and as much as it sucks, as we were talking about before we started recording, nobody wants to hear no, it doesn't feel good. Yet the more we can do it in a kind way, we can do it in a way that, that leaves the door open, that you may have a conversation with somebody a couple years down the road, just because you're like, wow, okay, he was so kind to me and I appreciated you recruiting me, and thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think, again, even though I didn't get a chance to coach Parker, I hope that through the recruiting process, I was able to help him, and teach him something and help him see, that, right? Hey, life's going to be full of hard conversations. It gets a little bit easier every time you do it. It's still hard. But, giving him those opportunities and listen, like I said, part of that is, the reason that the second best answer for me is no is because I can move on, right? If you leave that door open, I'm going to keep, I want him on my team. I'm going to keep going. And, if we're not a great fit for you for whatever reason, Like, it's okay. We hear no all the time. We're used to it.
But it also, I think, and from a parenting standpoint, like the way you handle that, you're also sitting next to all your friends who are also doing recruiting, and you're saying yay or nay to whether they should, that kid never even responded or didn't handle it well, or the parents are crazy or whatever. I'm sure there's plenty of those conversations that happen too when we don't handle it well.
And now these kids all come back around, it seems like. So,
Right? Yeah.
it is worth handling it the right way on both ends,
Yeah.
because it is a world right now where you just never know. You never know when the players can come around. Shoot, that player may end up being an assistant coach for you one day because of the relationship that you built when he was 16 or 17 years old. And so, those relationships is what makes my job fun. It's what gives me passion every day to keep going and keep trying to find the right people, is because of the relationships I've built. It makes the transfer portal and all these calls and all the Zooms and all the stuff that we do to try to put a good team together. It makes them makes them more fun and more enjoyable, because you are getting a chance at building a relationship. I had a call with somebody last night, and it was like, I didn't know the kid. I'd never talked to him before, and I could talk to that young man for, an hour a day, every day. I want to coach him so bad, because he believes in the same stuff I believe in. He wants relationships. He wants to be a part of a program that is like ours. And that fired me up, as much as all the no's, get you down, that got me fired up and ready to keep going for the next day.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I wanted my kids to get out of it, is all those relationships that you get to build. You never know where your journey is going to take you. And maybe you want to get into coaching, or maybe you want to, you're going to transfer. You just don't know. And you never know where that coach is going to be either, right? So, and the relationships that they have, and just being a good human, most importantly, right? Enjoying the process.
No doubt.
So, thank you so much for your time. I want to ask one last question before I let you go. How would you finish this statement? The best athletes I know do this.
They respond. The best athletes I know respond. And, I have a laundry list of things I want to teach our players. Response to not just adversity, response period is the thing that I want them to know. Like we say get it back, when things aren't going well, right? Something doesn't happen well. Basketball, the game happens so fast, right? You don't have time to sulk. You got to get it back. But we also say keep it going. And when things are going well, they're not just going to keep going well for you. You have some role in that too. And if you respond by, getting lazy, or you respond by, not holding to your fundamentals because things are going well, you're going to lose those opportunities too. So I think the best athletes respond, negative, positive. They are able to respond with, a strong set of fundamentals and standards that help them keep going.
A little Ted Lasso, huh? Be a goldfish.
A little bit. It's a strong part of my coaching philosophy.
Oh, thank you so much, Coach Lind. Mount St. Mary's, check them out. Follow. I'm a huge fan. I love following your journey, and thank you so much for making time.
No, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, Kirsten.
All right, parents, share. Who knows? Maybe send an email to Coach Lind's staff and get on his radar and have some good conversations. That's what the journey is all about. Let's do this.